Hello, I'm your host Visitola Buck, here with another exciting, riveting tale, Black Beauty, based on the original story by Anna Sewell. Adapted by Dan Richard, illustrated by John Goodell. The first place that I can remember was a large, pleasant meadow with a clear pond and shady trees. While I was first there, I lived on my mother's milk because I was too small to eat grass. In the day, I ran by her side, and at night I lay down close by her to keep warm. When I was old enough to eat grass, my mother would go out to work all day. I would stay at home in the meadow with 6 other colts. Sorry, I had a frog in my throat. I used to run with them and have great fun. We would gallop all together, round and round, as hard as we could. Sometimes our play would get a little rough, and we would bite and kick each other too. One day, when there was a good deal of kicking and biting, my mother called me to her side. "Pay attention to what I'm going to say," she said. "The goats you play with are very nice, but they have not learned their manners. To have manners, you must be gentle and good. Do your work with a good will. Lift your 3 feet high when you trot, and underneath the circumstance, bite and kick. Now you are my dear son, well bred and well born, and I hope you will live your life by my words." I have never forgotten my mother's advice. I knew she was a wise old horse and much loved by her master. I was thought to be very handsome, so my master would not sell me until I was 4 years old. Boys should not work like men, and colts should not work like horses until they are grown, my master would say. When I turned 4, I learned to go under saddle and in harness. To go under saddle, a horse must learn to wear a saddle and bridle and carry a human on his back. To go in a harness, a horse must learn to pull a cart. Whether under saddle or in harness, a horse is to go the way the humans wish, and go quietly. If I were to stay, all of this training was pleasant business. I would be a liar. The bit was nasty thing to have in my mouth, but I knew my mother wore one. Having to carry a human on my back did feel strange, but I became accustomed to it, and never did feel more like kicking than when I first wore that harness. But I could not kick such a good master. In time I got used to everything and could do my work as well as my mother. When that time came, I was sold to a Squire Gordon, and left my home for a place called Bitterwick Park. As I left, my master said, "Goodbye. Be a good horse, and always do your best." I could not say goodbye, so I put my nose into his hand instead. Squire Gordon's Birtwick Park was a beautiful place. My stall was large, square one, with a wooden gate. It was called a loose box because I was not tied up in it. My groom, John Manley, was kind and knowledgeable about horses, as my previous master. Once I settled into my stall, I said hello to the new neighbor. The fat little pony replied, "My name is Merlegs. I carry the young ladies on my back, or sometimes I take our mistress out in her cot." Just then, horses head looked over the stall beyond. It was a tall, chestnut-colored mare with a long, handsome neck. "Soon it is you who turned me out of my stall," she said. I had not turned Ginger out of her stall. She had been moved because she had a habit of biting. Ginger was never given any reason to be kind to anyone before she came to Birtwick Park. "I never had anyone, horse or man, that was kind to me, or that I cared to please," Ginger said. Ginger had not had a very good start in life. She was taken from her mother and put with some young colts that were mean to her. When she learned to go under the saddle and in the harness, it was forced on her. "There was no gentleness, only a hard voice and a hard arm," said Ginger. My time at Birtwick Park was filled with many adventures, but the incident that stands out most had to do with my mistress. It was a quiet night when I was awoke by the stable bell ringing loudly. Before I knew it, John Manley took me at a quick trot to my master's house. "No, John," said my master, "you must ride for your mistress' life." "Yes, sir," replied John. And away we went. After an 8-mile run, we came to town. The church clock struck 3 as we drew up at the doctor's door. John rang the bell and knocked twice. When the window fell open, John called to the doctor, "Mrs. Gordon is very ill. Master thinks she will die if you cannot get there at once." The doctor was quickly at the door. "Can I have your horse?" he asked, and John obliged. Soon we arrived. The doctor went straight in the house, and Joe Green, the new stable boy, led me away. My legs shook, sweat covered my body, and I stemmed all over. I'm sure poor Joe did have the best when he put me up that night. But soon after he left, I began to shake, and my body turned cold. My legs and chest ached. After a long while, I heard John at the door, and I gave a low moan. I took many days and nights of nursing to beat that terrible cold, but I did. All good things must come to an end, and so they did. Just 3 years past my arrival at Birtwick Park. My mistress never fully recovered from her illness. Eventually we heard that she must go to a warm country for 2 or 3 years. If she was never to get well, arrangements were made for her to leave England. My master sold Ginger and me to an old friend at Earlshall Park. Merrylegs was given to the vicar. Joe was sent to take care of him. John decided he would try for an arrangement for a first-rate horse trainer. Earlshall Park was a fine place. Ginger and I lived in adjoining box stalls and were well cared for. Mr. York was our new coachman, and he was friendly and polite. Our job at Urshel Park was to pull the lady's carriage. This would have been a fine post if were not for the bearing ring. You see, my lady was very into appearances, and using the bearing rein on carriage horses was thought to be fashionable. The bearing rein was a device to tie horses' head up to its harness so as to look proud and majestic. The problem was with it was once your head was tied up, you could not put it down. This made the bit sharp on my mouth, my neck muscles sore, and my breathing difficult. difficult. Never mind being unable to use my weight to help pull the carriage. My career as a carriage horse at Urshel Park ended when I suffered injuries to my knee. It was early April when it happened. Ribbon Smith, a groom, was to ride me home from town. Instead, he rode me to a place called White Lion. While I was waiting, the groom at the White Lion noticed once of my front shoe was loose. When Smith came, the boy inquired about the shoe and whether or not it should be fixed.
"No,"
said Smith.
"it will be all right."
Before we went out of town, Smith urged me into gallop with a sharp cut from my whip. It was very dark, and the roads were stony, but I kept on. Soon the place and sharp stones took their toll on my loose shoe flew off, but Smith kept on with the whip, urging me into a violent pace. My shoeless foot suffered terribly. The hoof was broken and split, and the inside was cut by the sharpness of the stone. Finally, I stumbled and came down on my knee. When the farrier examined my wounds the next day, the prognosis was good. My knee would be scared, but my joints were good, and I could work. These 300 pounds flung away for no earthly use, said my master. He must be sold. I could not have knees like these in my stable. My master made a good effort to find me a home where I could get sufficient care. The Earl had told him I should be more patient about the place than the money. I was placed in a lively stable where I was well fed and well cleaned. There were a good many of horses and carriages of different kinds for hire at the lively stable. Before, I had always been driven by people who knew how to drive, but at this place I would get my experience with all kinds of bad drivers. First there were the tight rein drivers, where they were men who seemed to think that all depended on holding the reins as tight as they could and never relaxing the pull on the horse's mouth, allowing any freedom of movement. There were the loose rein drivers. These men had let the reins rest easily on your box, while their own hands rested lazily on their knees. Of course, such men had no control over a horse, and if anything happened, they could not help themselves on their horses until the mischief was over. Finally, there were what I call steam engine style drivers. These drivers were mostly townspeople who have never had a horse and travelled by rail. Instead, they wanted a horse to be like a steam engine. They wanted a horse to go as fast as possible with a heavy load as they pleased. As is common in the horse business, I was able to be sold once again. This time, I was taken to a horse market. I looked in amusement at a young horse and shaggy little ponies passing by. There were hundreds of cart horses like myself, and splendid animals prime and fit for anything to do. In the background were a number of poorer horses. Those were old, broken down with work, and so thin you might see their ribs. It was as if there was no more pleasure in life for them. The man that bought me was small, well made, and quick in his motion. I knew in the moment, by the way he handled me, that he knows horses. He had a cheery way about him and kindly look in his eyes, too. I thought I would be quite happy with him. My new home in London, my new master was a cab driver named Jerry Barker. His stables were the old-fashioned kind, but I was kept very clean and given as much food as possible. At night Jerry would put up the bars at the back of my stall and let me move about. Best of all, I had Sundays for rest. When I was put in a harness for cab work, Jerry took great pains to see that it fit comfortably. It was as if he were John Manley all over again, and there was no bearing rain, and nothing but a smooth snaffle bit. What a blessing! I knew a better man than Jerry Barker. I never knew a better man than Jerry Barker. He was a good and kind, and it was because of him that my long, hard hours of work were tolerable. Jerry was a good driver, too. He was perfectly trustworthy, even on the busy London streets, and never laid the whip on me. Other horses I saw on London Street were not so lucky. Nothing bothered Jerry more than people who were always late, wanting a cab horse to be driven hard to make up for their idealness. Jerry would not take their fares. Other cab drivers would take any fare they could get and lash into their horses to set it off as hard as they could. No shilling for would not pay for that sort of thing, would it, old boy? Jerry say to me. One day I spied on a cart with two fine horses. No driver was present, and they had been standing a long time, so the two decided to move off. Well, before they had gone 5 paces, the driver came running out of a shop and caught them. He had then furiously punished them with the whip and rein. Other old horses were doomed to do cab work no matter what their health. I'm just being used up, one old horse told me. They work me without thinking of how I suffered. They paid for me and must get their money's worth. Cab fares were sometimes just as inconsiderate as the bad drivers. It was one such fare that cost me my place with Jerry Barker. 3 years past my arrival. It was the holiday season, and Jerry had caught a bad cough working late. The week of Christmas, on New Year's Eve, we had to take 2 gentlemen to a party at 9 o'clock. and picked them up at 11. It was a very cold night with a sharp wind and driving sleet, but at 11 we were there. We waited 2¼ hours, shivering with cold. By the time we got home, Jerry could hardly speak, and his cough was dreadful. Even so, he rubbed me down, and even went for an extra bundle of straw for my bed. It was late the next morning before anyone came, and then it was only Jerry's son, Harry. He did the chores and returned at noon with his sister Dolly to do them again. From what I could understand, poor Jerry was dangerously ill. On the third day, Jerry began to get well, and over the next week steadily improved, but heard Harry say, "The doctor said that if father wishes to become an old man, he must never go back to cab work again." It was quickly settled that as soon as Jerry was well enough, the family would move to the country where Jerry could take a job as a coachman. I was sold to a corn dealer and baker where Jerry thought I would have good food and fair work. Jerry was right about the good food, but more often than not, I would have quite a full load, and the foreman would still order something else to be taken, and I saw had to be where the bearing rain. This prevented me from pulling my loads easily. Why, by the time I had been with the corn dealer and baker for months, I found the work draining my strength. One day I was loaded with more than usual, and I just could not get up steep hill. My driver was whipping me badly when a lady stepped up to him. "Please stop. I think I can help you if you let me," she said persistently. "He cannot use all his power with his head held back with that bearing rein. If you would take it off, I'm sure he would do better." The bearing rein was taken off, and I moved that load up the hill. The lady asked that my driver not pull the bearing rein on again, but he replied that he would be a laughingstock if he did. He did let the bearing rein out several times, though in going uphill he always let me use my head, but the heavy loads kept on, and soon a younger horse was bought in my place, and I was sold to a large cab company. My master at the cab company was named Skinner. I have heard men say that seeing is believing, but for me feeling is believing. You see, I never knew till now the true misery of cab horses' life, for Skinner was a low set of cabs with low set of drivers. His men were hard on the horses, the work was relentless, and there was no Sunday rest. It was in the heat of summer when my work for Skinner finally came to an abrupt end. We took a fare at the railway. That was a party of 4 with great deal of luggage. As the luggage was being loaded, a young girl from the party came and looked at me. "Papa," she said, "I'm sure this poor horse cannot take us all and all our luggage. He is so very weak." But my driver assured the party that I was strong enough, and on we went. With neither food nor rest since morning, I got on fairly until we reached Ludgate Hill. It was there that the heavy load in my exhaustion became too much. My feet slipped from under me, and I fell heavily on my side. I had no power to move, and barely enough to breathe. I thought I was going to die. Upon my recovery, it was decided that I should get 10 days of perfect rest and good feed. Then it was back to the market to be sold once again. 12 days after the accident, I was taken to a sale. Upon arrival, I found myself in the company of the old broken-down horses I'd been seen at market before, but I felt that any chance from my present place would be a great improvement. So I held my head up high and hoped for the best. Poor and sickly many of buyers did not look any better off than the horses they were buying and selling. Then I noticed a man, a gentleman, farmer, with a young boy at his side, coming from the better part of the market. When they saw me, he said, "There's a horse, Willie, that has known better days." "Poor old fellow," said Willie. "Do you think that he was a carriage horse?" The man agreed the whole-hearted and explained that by the look of my ears, shape of my neck, and the slope of my shoulder, I could have been anything when I was young. "Oh, Grandpa, couldn't you buy him and make him young again like you did with Ladybird?" the boy begged.
Please, boy. Laughed the man. He is a horsey as his grandfather.
He then checked me over and had me trotted out. Oh, how I was tired to ache my neck, raise my tail, and throw out my legs for them. Despite the stiffness, the man, Mr. Thoroughgood, and his grandson bought me for £5 that day. My new home was a large meadow with a shed. In one corner I was given hay and oats every morning and night, and the run of the meadow during the day. Young Willie was given charge of me and my care. The boy was proud to have me as his responsibility, for a day went by that he did not visit. Most times he would bring me carrots, and sometimes he would just stand by me while I ate my oats. I grew very fond of him. One day my Mr. Thorogood came with Willie and looked closely at my legs.
He's improving so steadily that I think
we shall see a change for the better in the spring, he said. The perfect rest, good, soft ground, and gentle exercise were doing wonders for my health. Why, during the winter my legs improved so much that I began to feel young again. Spring soon came, and Mr. Thorogood and Willie gave me a try in harness. My legs were not stiff now, and I pulled the cart with perfect ease.
"Oh, he's grown young now,
said Mr. Thorogood.
We'll give him a little gentle work. By midsummer, he'll be as good as Ladybird."
"Oh, Grandpa, how glad I am you bought him," exclaimed the boy. Mr. Thorogood agreed, and added that now they must look out for a quiet and gentle home where I would be valued. A day came during the summer when I was sure a chance was at hand, and while Willie seemed half anxious, half merry, when he got into the cart, when his grandfather, if ladies take to him, said Mrs. Elgood, they'll be well suited, and so will he. Soon, when we came to a pretty little horse, with a lawn and shrubbery at the front, 3 ladies came out. When we drove up to the door, they looked at me and asked questions. The younger lady, Miss Ellen, took me right away. I'm sure I will take him. He's such a good face, she said. They kept me on a trial basis. In the morning, a smart young man called for me, when he was cleaning my face.
That is just like the star that Black Beauty had.
Then he came to scar on my neck, when I was bled, when I caught that dreadful cold. At this, he was startled and began to look at me carefully and talk to himself.
White scar on the forehead, one white foot scar on the neck.
Then look at the middle of my back.
And as I alive the little patch of white hair John Manley used to call Beauty 3-penny bit.
In that moment, he knew I was Black Beauty, and I knew he was little Joe Green. He was grown now, but I was sure he knew me. I put my nose in his hand to say hello, never to have seen a man so happy. When the ladies heard that I was the Squire Gordon's old Black Beauty, they said that they would write Mrs. Gordon and tell her that her favourite horse had come to them. One of the ladies said that she wanted to try and drive me. Joe Green led me to her door, and soon I found that the lady was a very good driver. After a week's time as a trial period, it was decided that the ladies would keep me. I was so excited to make the ladies happy. I have now lived in this happy place for a whole year. My work is easy and pleasant. Joe Green is the best and kindest groom, and the ladies promise that I will never be sold. My troubles are all over. I often feel like I am at Birtwick Park, standing with my old friends up under the apple tree. And that was Black Beauty. And in the next video, I'll be narrating The Secret Garden by Francis Hodgins Burnett. This is your host. Anyways, please like, and subscribe to my channel. This is your host, Sylvester Tollerborg, signing off.